Okay, thank you all, for your patience. I'm Tim Mazer. I'm the Uber judge. I'm not a real judge, but I'm sort of a backup and also kind of the moderator. We have 3 judges today who I'll invite to introduce themselves. As you can see, 2 of them are virtual and 1 is in person. We're going to do those introductions. Then I have a short paragraph to read, and after I'm finished with the paragraph, we will begin to be in character. So any questions before we jump in? We're good? Okay, awesome. So let me begin by inviting Caitlin to introduce herself.
Sure. So I'm Caitlin Tovey. I am employed at Medtronic in their Data and Privacy Center of Expertise. I've worked in compliance and ethics in the legal field for about 10 plus years. Very glad to have you all here.
And Caroline, can we have you introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm Caroline Castro. I'm in Florida. I teach ethics. I've been involved in very many ethics issues, and I'm presently doing a study on Boeing, which gets worse and worse every day, unfortunately. And I teach at Colorado Technical University, and I was a full professor at the City University of New York. And I've worked with international companies.
All right, thank you. And Vera, you are calling from where?
I'm calling from Italy.
Okay, and introduce yourself.
Of course. My name is Vera Cheripanova. I'm from the practitioner world. I have been in ethics and compliance for at least 16 years. I work as an ethics and compliance advisor with various international organizations, and I also sit on a steering committee of an academic international conference called ComplianceNet.
Perfect. And I'm Tim Mazer. I've worked in ethics and compliance for 36 years. Even though Vera and I have never met, I have liked her LinkedIn posts more than anyone in the world. So it's very exciting for us to talk today. I work at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard in ethics and compliance. So let me read my script. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. So as soon as I stop speaking, please make sure everyone knows who the 4 of you are, and then tell us who the 4 of us are. You will then have 25 minutes with up to 30, but if you go past 30, you'll lose points. So you have up to 30 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and then to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted. When you're finished, I will then ask a first question, and then the remaining 3 judges will ask questions for a total of 20 minutes. During your presentation and the Q&A, both you and the judges stay in character. But after the 20-minute Q&A is over, then the judges will step out of character. You can step out of character. You're allowed to breathe at that point, and we'll give you feedback outside of the roles. Some important things to keep in mind: the ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a serious weakness. During this presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of a speaking role. Okay, so tell us who you are and who we are, and then we'll start the timer.
So we are Diamond City Consulting, and you guys are McDonald's Board of Directors and the Executive Suite.
Perfect. Okay, go for it.
Good morning. My name is Liam Hackett. I'm the Director of Diamond City Consulting. We are honored and pleased today to join you and present solutions for your ethical dilemma that you, as a corporation McDonald's, are facing. We understand that there are many different financial, legal, and ethical considerations that must be taken into consideration for this ethical issue. That is why today we have designed our team with Nick Swain as our ethic advisor, Jacob Oros as our financial advisor, and Brandon Powell as our legal expert. And he will now take you into your mission statement.
First, we'll take you through your mission statement to find how you, as a company, would like to establish daily operations. The mission statement is as follows. Through its size and scale, McDonald's embraces and prioritizes its role and commitment to the communities in which it operates through its purpose to feed and foster communities and its mission to make delicious, feel-good moments easy for everyone. Along with the mission statement, McDonald's has provided 5 core values on how you as a company would like to see operations run. These core values are as follows. Serve, to put customers and people first. Inclusion, opening the doors to everyone as both employees and patrons. Integrity, doing the right thing at all times. Community, being a good neighbor and fostering communities. Family, bringing people together. McDonald's as a company brings these core values to their set of values to bring into everyday life and operations.
So that brings us to the problem we want to present to you guys today. This is kind of a multifaceted problem at hand. It's important that we look at all aspects of it. So first, given the post-COVID economy, we would like to highlight that there has been a labor shortage, and this has kind of been a concern for businesses' hiring practices, like we have brought up with McDonald's, which we will talk about. With this, these hiring practices may result in a negative correlation between the strain on teenage workers and the hiring practices themselves, as the companies, mainly some of the bigger corporations, are targeting the younger employees. With this, these workers are encountering improper working conditions and a strain on the education they should be receiving due to these working conditions. Leaving it important that this is a crucial development period for the students, we wanted to highlight that their well-being and education is very important to us, and which is why we would like to implement solutions based on maintaining their well-being. And then just one other thing with our problem, although legal in nature, we do tend to view your company's hiring practices towards teens as unethical, presenting challenges that fall out of line with the mission Brandon discussed.
Next is some labor violations that we have found. Across the United States, labor violations have been rampant for the length of time, and McDonald's is not immune to this. In 2022, 62 McDonald's locations across 3 franchises in 4 states have found 305 children working illegal and unpaid hours. Labor violations as a whole has been on the rise, and as you can see in the graph, it has shown increased in both the sheer number of cases as well as the number of children involved in these cases. Violations like these show a clear lack of control in McDonald's. This is completely unacceptable as your values and beliefs are stronger than this.
So this dives us into our ethical dilemma, which we will be discussing today. First, we wanted to note that this issue is not about hiring the teens, it's about how they're exploited in the workplace. So, like I mentioned earlier, the accountability for the strain on these teenage employees kind of relates back to management and the strategies implemented as of today, or as of right now. But these teens are currently losing out on skills and educational benefits they should be receiving, given the fact that, you know, they might be running through a public education system where education is provided for them. For instance, working these longer hours over a course of time presents less time committed to schooling and an inability to function and maintain a well-being that would be sustainable for you know, the teens as well. So that brings us to our last point of unethically speaking, your company, McDonald's, has been acting in the company's best interest to account for the labor shortage and hiring practices without involving teens' perspective in maintaining their well-being and sustaining their way of life.
So that leads us into our solutions. With the ethical dilemma that Nick has just presented to us, we have researched extensively and have come up with 2 very good solutions that we believe will help alleviate the strain on the teenage workforce. The first of which is applying standards for best practices. This will ensure that the teenagers are being safe and well advised, and it would also keep your company out of legal issues. The second is the McTutor Assistance Program. This is an assistance program, tutoring program, that will ensure that your teenagers get the help that they need in the schoolwork so that they can strive on their main priority of their education.
In response to these labor violations, the Department of Labor has outlined 7 best practices to ensure a healthy work environment. These best practices will be the basis for our solution. The best practices are as follows. Train management. Management should be aware of these violations as well as what it takes to resolve them. Next is to distribute resources. Each McDonald's location should have the resources available to establish these practices as well as implement them. Next is to build trust, not only within the community, but also between the team members and management as well. And then finally, the next 3 are provide different name tags, post warnings, and use signage and spotlight hazards. These all revolve around posting warnings so the McDonald's employees are well aware of these practices and what they are and are not allowed to do for their best safety. Next is how we will implement these best practices. First is establishing training programs. These training programs will be top down, starting with McDonald's corporate all the way down to each individual team member. These training programs will require 100% accuracy of each employee to be able to continue their work. Mandatory postings to highlight high-risk areas will be involved in these trainings, as well as on-hand training from management. Next will be how we will enforce these best practices. McDonald's as a whole will have to send random inspectors to each McDonald's location to ensure that these practices are being met. In locations that these are not being met, penalties and fines will incur on those management of each location, which will continuously occur until the issues are resolved. We will dive deeper into the viability of the implementation shortly.
So that leads us into the McTutor. The McTutor would be an online resources that your employees can access at any time and get a tutor available 24/7 hours of the day. This will help ensure that your teenagers are able to get individualized help on anything that they might be struggling on. In addition to this, our research has shown that with tutoring, going to tutoring once a week, teenagers increase their performance by, on average, 1 letter grade. In addition to this, their absentee rates, their disciplinary referrals, and their absentee rates decrease, and their self-confidence increases. This will ensure that the teenagers are able to develop themselves while you, as a corporation, get a more educated and a more disciplined workforce. This will now lead us into the implementation of the McTutor. As seen on the right, this is a mock-up of what the McTutor website may look like. This will allow the teenagers to log into the website at any time and go and find a tutor for themselves. This virtual program will offer video calls and online resources such as textbooks and other resources that may help them with their studying. And this will, it's crucial to their success. In addition to this, we will establish progress reports that will get the teenagers excited as they can see how they have progressed throughout the year. This is a model based on research. However, after implementation and we get some real-time data back, we can see how changes may need to be adjusted, when tutors need to be available, and how to best implement this. This will lead us into our financial considerations.
So before we discuss the considerations, I'd like to provide some quick statistics that are relevant to our consultation. So a brief overview. There are 1.5 million employees worldwide, of which 13% of employees are teenagers. As a number form, this is 195,000 teenage employees. Last year's total revenue, 2023, was $25 billion with a net income of $8 billion. So what are the financial considerations for our standards of best practices? McDonald's will outsource their inspectors. This is important to diminish conflict of interest as well as diminishing bias. It's important that these inspectors are open and honest and don't have any type of identify problems that are in time and they aren't being biased for the company itself. We don't want to hire them from within because then they might just have alternative motives. We want to have one inspector for every 50 McDonald's, and we want this to be regionally based. This breaks down to about one store every week per inspector. And we want to have a team of 271 inspectors, of which we will pay $60,000 a year. I understand as shareholders, this may seem like it's going to impact the bottom line, but it's important to note if we pay them, if they feel underpaid, they're not going to provide us the value that we want, which is honesty and quality inspections. This brings a cost for the inspectors of $16,260,000 per year.
So this leads us into the financial consideration for McTutor. On average, the teenage population uses a tutoring service, about 20% of them do. However, with this service being free for your employees, we believe that 25 to 30% will capitalize on this benefit. This will lead to an estimated of 48,000 to 58,000 users using it weekly. We also researched and we found that tutoring services are used on average 1 to 2 hours a week per those that actually use it. This would equate to 48,000 to 117,000 hours need to be performed by your tutors within a week. If we have full-time tutors, this would equate to 1,200 to 3,000 tutors needed to fill those requirements. Tutoring costs between the average wage for a tutor would be $20 to $25 an hour. With adding this all together, this would cost $1 million to $3 million per week, or $51 million to $156 million per year. And there are also some other costs that can be attributed to the McTutor. For example, there will be a website upkeep. That would be maintenance and ensuring that the websites run smoothly. That'd be $26,000 per year. In addition, there'd be supporting material as we discussed earlier, like the textbooks and such. That'd be about $50,000 a year. And we've taken the salary of tutors. We've taken the low average, the low estimate and the high estimate, combined them and got the average of $103,500,000. This would make the total cost of McTutor to be $103,576,000 per year. In addition to this, there'd be some one-time fees to get the startup and McTutor program running. For example, we need the domain name for the website. That costs on average $7,000. And the building of the website, we would estimate to be $50,000. Overall, the total cost of McTutor for the first year would be $103,633,000.
This brings us to the impact on the bottom line, which as shareholders is relatively important. So based on our calculations of last year's financial statements, we see a net income of roughly $8,500,000,000 prior to our program implementation. Afterwards, the net income after implementing these programs and the costs would be $8,349,000,000. As you can see the breakdown here. This results in an expense of $120 million for both programs combined. Now, I also want to provide some visuals to help break this down easier. This pie chart might seem like it's a little wonky, but I just want to emphasize that the percentage of net income is only 1%. So I don't want this to be seen as a cost, but more as an investment in your employees' education, safety, and future. Additionally, the net revenue and income have been rising in recent years. So this isn't like it's a cost of already net revenue going down. We have room to make this work. Again, 1% for something that your employees are going to benefit them for life.
Next, we will take you to the legal considerations of our solutions. First is the legal considerations for the best practices. We will be referencing the child labor provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act for these considerations. First is Rule 29, Part 570. This establishes both hours and occupational standards for both youth. Next, subsection 35 and 34 limits the hours of days that 14 and 15-year-olds are able to work, as well as listing the jobs that 14 and 15-year-olds may hold. Many of these restrictions revolve around temperatures of grills, as well as deep fryers that children aren't allowed to work in solely for their safety. Although many of McDonald's locations have been in compliance with these laws, many have not, and that's why it is very important to stress these legal considerations. Next is the legal considerations for McTutor. Creating a tutoring website and resource is challenging in the eyes of the law. We will be focusing on the child protection laws, specifically Title 34. Title 34 prohibits abuse of children in any capacity while in the care of another. This includes tutors, teachers, and employers. This also prohibits mental abuse, which is very common in tutors, as well as especially in all virtual tutors. We would also like to implicate certain certifications to ensure that these children are in the best hands possible. Providing extensive background checks of each tutor, as well as educational requirements to ensure that they are the best for the job.
So this brings us to our ethical considerations for both our solutions. But first, we wanted to run through a couple of ethical principles, which may help understand the solutions from an ethical perspective. So we took a few principles from the Harvard Business Review. The first of which being a transparency principle, which in today's day and age, it is a reasonable assumption to be a cause of concern for businesses wondering about accuracy, truth, and disclosure of the information they provide. This information, in turn, should not be misleading or cause harm to the employees or the public. Next brings us to the reliability principle. This is a principle that surrounds around the idea of caring for the commitments made by a company, essentially standing back your word and whatnot. With this, violations can be pretty hefty, and including breach of promise or contract, which could create a distaste in either employees or the shareholders' interests, as everybody wants to act on their best interest. This brings us to our last principle of dignity principle. So essentially this principle looks to protect and promote the company's interests in a way that respects all facets of the company, whether it's the shareholders, the employees, or the public being served. We want to ensure that our solutions and whatnot make what's best for everyone. This principle also implies respective efforts towards developing human potential, which we will highlight in our ethical considerations for our solutions. So this brings in our considerations for best practices. After looking into the financial and legal considerations, we feel that this was a very important part of how we dissected this issue. So as a company, an ethics code of conduct should respect human dignity and well-being of the employees, which can sometimes be overshadowed by the productivity that corporate and management may want their employees to output. With this, these best practices are meant to be implemented as a way to familiarize all employees, putting teens at the forefront of this in an effort to distinguish a sound culture and incorporate teens to a system that they feel comfortable with altogether. With this, we thought it would be important to include a little excerpt from the United Nations Global Compact, which presents principles related to human rights and labor, and altogether just initiatives towards corporate sustainability, which relates to a company's value system and principles that they should approach doing business. So a few of these principles relate to the ideas of how employees are treated with an understanding of how a company should go about their business. And for you guys especially, we'll be looking at how the strain on teens is an important facet to this issue. In an effort to alleviate the issues of misunderstanding, providing transparency in the responsibilities teens are supposed to be doing at work. This allows the company to align with morals and initiatives benefiting the greater good of all employees. So now we'll move into the ethical considerations for McTutor. We wanted to reiterate that we believe it is in the best interest of your company to implement a tutoring program sustainable for the use of teens. With this program, providing students the opportunity to supplement the work they do in the stores with educational benefits will present an increased well-being in youth development. We also wanted to reiterate the fact that this program itself, McTutor, is meant to create a balance, like stated earlier. So although accounting for the issue of miseducation due to working conditions mentioned by Brandon and accounting for the labor shortage, it is important to understand that the opportunity to strengthen learning through McTutor is essential to this ethical issue. So going back through the principles I mentioned earlier, I would like to dissect how the reliability and dignity principles fall back into the hands of both shareholders and the tutors themselves. In terms of a reliability principle, it is in the hands of management to be reliable and ethically practice. It is in the hands of management to be reliable and ethically practice their company's preached importance toward the education that the teens are getting as they're being strained through their work. With this, the dignity principle allows teens to get the work they need. And once again, we want to reiterate that McTutor is solely a resource for the teens to grow and display employee potential. And we do not want it to be forced on the teens who do not want to utilize it, given its use as a resource. Essentially, corporate and management will pave the way. It's up to the teens whether or not they want to use it.
So this brings us to our solution. In terms of best practice, we have ensures that teenage employees are being treated properly. Nobody wants to be working somewhere that doesn't respect them. And if they are, they're not going to be working efficiently, and it's going to hurt the bottom line productivity of that employee. Minimize the rate of workplace injury. Doing so will foster a safer, more welcoming community and work environment. Routine inspections will combat the child labor violations, saving your company money on the numerous fines that have accumulated over the years, and protecting the teenagers as well. In terms of McTutor, the tutor will act as an educational crutch to employees that they can utilize when they are overwhelmed. It bridges the gap between work and education for teenage workers, gives them a better means to balance it. Lastly, it allows your company to address the labor shortage while providing an opportunity for teens to further their education. Again, this is an investment in your employees' future. By implementing our solution for the McTutor, we expect the students to benefit in current academics that they may be struggling with as a result of longer labor hours, as well as laying a foundation for future academic success. In terms of best practices, integrating standards to align with the Department of Labor's best practices will lower the risk of injury in employees as well as improve the current working conditions and therefore improving productivity.
So looking into our tangible benefits, we just kind of wanted to highlight what we were emphasizing as a result of this consultation. First off, we wanted to note that with our solutions, we hope to achieve a better educated workforce, mostly in teens. And this is just, once again, emphasizing the idea of maintaining a well-being that is sustainable and acceptable in the workplace. Next, we also want to highlight that there will be reduced fines and penalties to the stores that have previously been cited for overworking employees and providing unsafe work environments. With this, our best standards will present improved working conditions, as it will be more clear and transparent as to what the teens are exactly supposed to be doing in the workplace. Followed by this, there will be an increased level of employee satisfaction, given the fact that the company is now highlighting all employees. And finally, there will be an enhanced brand reputation where McDonald's will be where you guys as a company will be understood as a building block in a way for how other companies should implement an educational service to teens and the workforce where other issues may come.
So we discussed what these programs will do to benefit your company now and the present, but what about future opportunities? How about over the horizon and investment? Implementing standards for best practice will lower the rate of work-related injury, meaning that they're less likely for permanent injuries that affect the employee's futures, as well as your company's reputation. Integrating the tutoring program provides a number of benefits to the academic future of student employees, especially in college, as they are currently teenagers who are preparing for further education. Improved academic performance, enhanced learning skills, preparation for standardized tests such as the SAT or ACT, which is very essential for college entrance exams, or for college entrance. And many of these teenage employees might not have the resources at home. For example, first-generation college students. Your company will be able to provide them with this resource. And increase confidence and self-efficiency.
We conclude our presentation today with a reiteration of your mission statement and core values and how it is expected to work in everyday life. McDonald's is a leader of entry-level employment, and we need to maintain that ethical practice and not deviate from that path in the future. By implementing our solutions, it will create a safe and healthy environment while recognizing that teens need to focus time outside of work and in the classroom. The ability to involve teenage labor in McDonald's is key and a staple of the McDonald's employment. Doing it in a safe and ethical way will enable McDonald's to serve and foster communities the way you all intend to. Thank you for all of your time this morning. It's been a pleasure.
All right, thank you very much. So as we mentioned, when you arrived, we're gonna ask some questions for 20 minutes. I'm gonna begin by asking, what makes the issue that you just presented an ethical issue?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Obviously, the problem at hand is that their company has been employing teenagers as a result of post-COVID economy where there is labor shortage. But the ethical issue lies where they continue to work in their best interest, hiring the employees without regarding the well-being and sustainability of the practices where teenagers are being disregarded with regards to being overworked, all while losing that kind of strain on education where we feel it's essential that they should be learning and developing skills where they will be applying them into their everyday lives instead of obviously just working and whatnot.
Caitlin?
Sure. So my first question is whether you considered if the tutoring program should be internal or should we be outsourcing that? I didn't see any evaluation of that in your presentation. So perhaps partnering with community groups or organizations like Kumon or other ones like that. Did you do any kind of financial analysis? Because we don't want to spend money on hiring our own tutors. We could just perhaps utilize other resources that are out there.
Yeah, we actually did look into that. However, we felt that an internal McTutor service would help the employees more, as we were looking at other tutoring services and we felt that they weren't as good, like the 24/7, they weren't always 24/7, and at least we couldn't find one. We also think that it would be cheaper for you guys if you were to implement your own. And you'd be able to, those progress reports and everything, maybe those would be helpful too for them.
I'd also like to add with that, internally, it's great for the brand reputation, both leading the industry with the guys who cited, for example, even Target, they'll outsource their tutoring and education benefits. But with McDonald's enforcing that, it's an internal and they're working towards the future, investing in their employees. It comes full circle. It's shown that education boosts the economy, like in higher education leads to improvements in the economy, which then is spent on corporations such as McDonald's. So I believe it'll all come full circle.
I have 3 questions. Number 1, can you hear me? I tie
Yes.
McDonald's.
Yes.
Have you gotten involved? Have you got with McDonald's University? I have many students who get promoted up. Have you seen if any of your people have had that privilege? Secondly, have you tied in the salary of your employees as compared to me? And number 3, every one of my graduate students has been promoted up through the. So my question is how the McDonald's University could work with you. They also hire people who are special in terms of infirmities and things of that nature. So there is more than the issue of teenager. Thank you.
Did you guys hear any one of the 3?
Not fully.
Caroline, thank you for the quality of the questions. The internet connection went in and out a couple of times while you were speaking, so do me a favor and restate only your first question again, please.
Thank you. I'm asking you, how have you connected this with McDonald's University?
How have you, what with McDonald's University?
Yes.
Spell the word. How have you? You guys know?
The words you cannot ignore, McDonald's University, where employees are promoted up the ranks.
Okay, so how will the McTutor program work in conjunction, which is new? How will that work with the long-held program at McDonald's called McDonald's University, which is traditionally the professional development place where employees can take courses so that they can earn promotions?
Right. So the McDonald's University is more for terms of people who are looking to further their education as a McDonald's employer. So not that we don't want these employees to go to college and come back to your company, but it's also important that people are educated. Again, I'm going to cite that the higher education leads to an improvement in the economy. So while McDonald's University is a great program, it could even work hand in hand. These are high school teenagers who aren't looking for promotions within the company. They need to acquire real life skills, some of which 15 years old, working a fryer really isn't going to enforce that. So it could work hand in hand, even with they're doing their tutoring, they're doing their schoolwork, they're in high school. And then if they'd like to, or we could even advertise and maybe push it onto them a little bit, if they'd like to also do the McDonald's University to work towards a position within the corporation.
To build on that, this time frame of early high school into graduating high school is very important for the development of the brain as well as education. So without that without the resources in the beginning of that, it's hard to get to a point where they can move forward with McDonald's University after graduation of high school and after graduation of college, if they don't build them early.
Okay, perfect. So next will be Vera, and then after Vera, we'll go back to Caroline for one of her second questions. Vera?
Yes, thank you, but I'm still not bought on the ethical side of the problem. Could you please outline for me the tangible harm, the tangible ethical harm, which we are bringing to these teenagers?
So essentially, the tangible ethical harm for the teenagers in this sense would be that McDonald's, or I guess your company would still be disregarding their growth and establishment in the workplace as employees who should be recognized. And so essentially with that, we also wanted to highlight that the well-being and I would guess so I guess the main other ethical tangible harm would be that this tutoring service is not sustainable for every single teen, as there are many different learning habits and programs which in schools they do have instructional support, things like that. An online tutoring service can only do so much. So not accounting for every single type of learning support would still create an imbalance of that line of what is right and what is wrong.
Although these employees that are young are voluntarily working, it's dragging the focus of their focus outside of the classroom and into working, when the classroom should be their main focus at this point in their lives. And that is a tangible harm with the ethical dilemma here of taking that focus away.
Okay, Caroline? We can't hear you. Caroline, we still can't hear you. Okay, we now can hear you for the first time.
Thank you. All right, the next question is, how do the salaries of your inspectors who are going to be outsourced compare to the workers? I feel whatever you need is to train management how to determine which student would be interested in going to McDonald's University. Every one of my students who works for McDonald's has come up to the university, and I maintain you cannot force the university from your program. And your program, if you're taking teenagers, there are many people who are disabled who are working for McDonald's.
So I'll tell you what I heard, and if you heard anything, you go with that too. So the concept of the amount that you're paying your McTutor instructors, do you feel it's good in relationship to the amount of pay that's being earned by the students? And secondly, have you considered the possibility of not only delivering education to the 14 and 15-year-olds, but do you need to train managers about how to manage young workers in a way that fits with the point of your presentation?
Thank you.
To address the first part of that problem, with the tutor salary, it's certainly on the higher end, especially compared to these teenage employees. But as much as we'd like to suggest it, it's really not tangible to just raise the wage of all these teenage employees. For example, if we're comparing it to a tutor, right now, a lot of locations pay $10, $15 an hour. Even if we raise that by $5 for every location, the impact on your bottom line and as shareholders is going to be much more drastic than the 1% projection we have now. So we still believe that while yes, maybe we could small raise for these teenage employees, the tutoring is really what's going to enforce that education is important. And without quality tutors, it's going to defeat the purpose of the program. So it's still only 1%, but we want to make sure that the 1% benefits you guys where you want it, where you need it. So if we're going to spend that money, we want to make sure that it's on quality. If these tutors just aren't up to standard, it's not going to benefit them. And if anything, stress them out more and trying to learn from a not so great tutor that we aren't paying well. And again, it's brand awareness. You guys are the company that are paying these tutors inside to come and educate your employees to benefit their future with a generous salary. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The concept of, in the big picture of you trying to accomplish your goals and those benefits that you discussed, is there room for education of managers, not only the 14 and 15-year-olds?
Yeah, so in regards to that, one of the first best practice that the Department of Labor has outlined is train management. It really is a top-down form of implementation of these best practices to ensure the safety and education of these students. And if it doesn't start with management, it'll never get down to the individual team members. So putting these managers through more rigorous training on what to look out for and how to address it would be key in the implementation process.
Okay, Caitlin?
Have you put any thought into how we might put controls in place in our scheduling software to ensure that students are not being scheduled during hours that are inappropriate and take away from their focus on their education?
We haven't put much thought into that, but just as an idea for appropriate hours, no student employee should be working. I mean, I know there's minor labor laws too. They can't work past, in many states, 9:45 or 10:45. So that's already kind of a control that's in place. But even maybe one is 8 p.m. If a student is given an off from school and then high school 2:30, middle school 3, 5 to 8, 5 to 9, 3 to 7, 4-hour shifts are proven to be, with students, the most consistent and like less, sorry, I can't think of the word, less mentally demanding, but even then it's still a stretch.
Vera, how about your second question?
Yes.
Yes.
Or no, I'm sorry, Vera.
There
Yes.
Are you there, Vera? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. My second question is, I wanted to understand the risk perspective. So if we're not going to be going forward with your solution, and basically if we're not going to be going with any solution, we just keep the status quo, what are we risking?
A lot of the risks in regards to the best practices implementation solution that we have, it puts you at risk for more fines and penalties on the violation that occurred in the 4 states across the 62 locations of the child labor law violations. You all incurred a $312,000 fine. So if these violations continue to occur without being addressed accordingly, it will continue to pile up and put more financial burden on you all as a corporation.
And in regards to the McTutor program, if you were to go forward with this, we've seen Starbucks go on strike with their employees, and it's often think of as Starbucks is treating their employees as one of the best. They're always like giving them great programs and benefits. So if we do not go forward with the implementation of McTutor and we continue to disregard the mental health and the development of these young teenagers, they might go on strike and might make a public outcry that would ruin your brand reputation.
And additionally, I believe it'll just steepen the gap of the labor shortage that you're currently struggling with. It's already something that's present, and maybe it won't be now in the present, but in the future, it's definitely gonna make it harder to find employees and keep different chains up and running.
Okay, and probably the last question is from me. I absolutely appreciate everything that you're trying to accomplish with your solution, but one of the realities is if we succeed in your solution and we educate these employees, what's to stop them from leaving McDonald's? And our investment not only will be wasted, but it will benefit one of our competitors or somebody else at our expense.
I feel with these teenage employees coming in, working for you for the first time, they get an experience of the corporate world. If you were to treat them well, you might be able to gain their respect, gain like some trust in them that they might want to return back to your corporation. So I feel like it's not really an expense that you're wasting completely. There are still the chance and opportunity for these young employees to see what McDonald's is doing and to continue into your corporate world. You can even, with these teams that you have established into your tutoring program, you can see which ones they are and who is doing what. You could maybe be able to reach out to them and see where they're going with their career. If they're in college, if they're about to graduate, you can maybe reach out to them, ask them if they're looking for a job or something like that. Because you already know that these teenagers, the ones that are in this program, are the hardworking ones, the ones that you want within your corporation. So I feel like it's honestly a great investment for you to do this.
And although many students who are a part of this program may leave in the future for different facets of adult life, it will provide and establish the goodwill for future teenagers, and as may younger siblings, or when they have children, when they establish a family and they're in that teenage years, the recurring and future recurring teenage employment growth.
Well, good. Well, I might suggest that among the content that the McTutors teach, it would be awesome if you did not teach them about their right to unionize. Okay, thank you. We're all set. That's 20 minutes. We are now finished being in character. So congratulations on surviving. Sometimes people don't, so this is good. And so now the four of us have no more than 10 minutes in our real life personas to give you some candid feedback. Let me share that we have specific things on our judging forms that we're asked to rate you on, which of course has all been communicated to you transparently, so you know what you're done. Given that all four of us have experience actually delivering a presentation exactly like you just did in front of real boards of directors, one or more of the four of us might have some additional feedback that maybe won't add points or remove points, but we're just trying to be helpful and make this a good experience for you. So Caitlin, 2.5 minutes.
Okay. So to start off, great job, everyone. Nobody melted down. If I was your age, I probably would have not done as good a job as you back when I was in college. So I did want to start off and say I really like the idea of the inspections and that, you know, actually checking on and verifying that things are being done. It's one thing to say you're going to do something, another thing to actually do it. And then that can create a whole issue right there. The McTutor program, I'm not totally sold on. I think there might be some issues with that, more to flesh out. So maybe that could have been an area to develop a little bit further. pros and cons, comparing it to other organizations that have had successful ones in the past. The other comments I wanted to make were just on overall presentation. It's pretty good. A little bit of informal language use, though, I've noticed. A few, was it you guys and whatnot, was thrown in there here and there. We all do it, but just be mindful of that as you're giving presentations to a formal audience, like in front of a board of directors. What else?
No, I
So I
just,
think that was all I have for now. I just want to say great job.
Okay, so let's hear from Caroline about her feedback now that we're out of character.
okay, I maintain this, I appreciate all the hard work, but I maintain it's not being handled properly. Every McDonald's has a regional inspector, she or he, and I've worked with them. They should know what is going on in their local branches. Number two, the managers should be trained to go to the schools these students are attending and see how both the principals and the managers can work together. I don't think just segregating teenagers is the way to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vera?
Yes, great job, everyone. You survived. That was impressive. I don't know how I would deal with this, semi-virtual, semi-in-person format if I were on your place today. So hats off to you guys. I really like this case. What I felt is that actually the problem that you are trying to tackle is a lot wider than McDonald's, and the ethical dilemmas are a little bit wider than precisely McDonald's can tackle. But I still like your courage taking this big challenge for the case, for the subject of the case, and tackling it along with a practical solution. I felt that the financial perspective was a little bit stronger in presentation than the other two, the legal and the ethical. Going to the legal dimension, I would appreciate having some perspective into the industry, a little bit more of that, what the industry is doing, because I'm pretty sure that not only McDonald's is struggling with the issue, right? So it could be nice to have something in the presentation with regards to what the peers and competitors are doing, and maybe some scary stories about, court decisions to scare the board members a little bit more, and provide a little bit more of this message of sense of urgency. And on the ethical dimension, the question that I asked about the tangible ethical harm, I thought it could be beneficial to have it on the slides in the presentation, outlined more precisely, more visibly. Overall, well done. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Let's see. I agree with the other three that this was well done. So it's awesome that you clearly did a lot of research and were well prepared and well practiced. Great to start off with the mission of the organization and then the core values. It's a home run, and it may seem obvious to you, but you'll be surprised at how many people don't, because it's very hard for members of executive management or the board of directors to have anybody tell them about ethics. They're all very wealthy, they feel very successful, they're often very arrogant, and the last thing in the world they want. So the way to get over that challenge is to bring up their values and their mission. So that way you're not yelling at them as an outsider, you are reminding them as busy executives of what their values are. You were all clearly prepared. Nick, it was Nick, right? it's the right thing to do to have the note cards with you to make sure that you're set. It was great, the effort you were making to do eye contact. So, you know, we allow note cards. We want you to use them as little as possible, but we allow them. You do know in real life, you're not able to have those. So when you're making $140,000 a year to deliver these presentations, you'll have more time to be perfectly prepared. But I would actually want to thank you for the effort that you were putting into, and your name on the right? Brandon as well. You know, it's a good that you follow the screen, but it was great the amount of effort you put into the eye contact. Starting off with the problems slide and the labor violations was a great way to go. Just like Vera asked, and there was a point when I think Vera asked her second question, you know, Brandon, I think you talked about, you know, like she's like, what are the risks? And you jumped right back into these criminal violations. Very good answer to be like that, because in the same spirit of Caitlin, I agree with what I understood her feedback to be, that between the best practices and the McTutor, the best practices had a really good component for the ethics part. You know, the transparency principle, the reliability principle, you know, the balance with the McTutor is cute. It just wasn't enough, you know, so that was good. Very good that you talked about the costs of the program, so that taking that level of finance seriously was excellent. I will say for Liam, I have done what you guys just did, you know, probably like 20 times. It was not, you did everything right at the beginning. It was for that last slide that talked about the cost of the website. It was good to have that as a slide. You did not need to spend time. That's too little detail, too much detail to get into these miscellaneous things, you know, but it's good to be a part of the deck, but you should not have spent the number of seconds on it that you did. Let's see. Excellent that you covered the FLSA and these other major laws. It would have been definite negative points if you didn't cover those laws. Very good that Nick connected to the UN Global Compact. We are McDonald's. We're a global corporation. And so you can't bring up UN Global Compact for, you know, Five Guys Pizza in, you know, Newton, Massachusetts. But for McDonald's Corporation, it was the right thing to do. So that's excellent. Nick, there was a point when one of the judges, you know, asked you a question about ethics. Remember, because ethics is so theoretical and abstract, it's you guys did great in the Q&A, but if ever they're asking about ethics stuff, if it's possible to connect your answer to something you presented in the presentation, always do that, because sadly, people's brains just blow up when we start to talk about ethics, because it's different than 2 + 2 = 4. And if someone like Brandon is standing in front of the slide deck, and if anyone during the Q&A makes reference to something that was in the presentation, quickly go back and put that slide back up again. For Jacob, I think, well, I forgot who of you referred to alternative motives. It was Jacob. In our line of work, we call that conflict of interest. Yeah, COI, conflict of interest, is the way to go. And I hadn't thought about what time it is. It's 10:24. Yeah, I already talked about that. I will say that I felt like you were jumping around. You know, some teams, you know, that go, here's the legal, here's the financial, here's the ethical, here's our proposed solution, and this and that. And it felt like you kind of went back and forth with, maybe it's not a bad thing because you kept coming back to ethics, which is the most important part. But if I'm a busy board member or something, there's some value to just making it easier for me to understand your path. But that's just me. Surprised, I heard no reference to the huge thing that just happened 3 weeks ago with the state of California raising the minimum wage to $20 for all of our McDonald's restaurants. So, anytime you're presenting in front of the board, make sure you're on top of the most current things happening so they know you're hip. As Caitlin said, try not to say you guys and try not to say sorry. So I know it's natural, but you'll get a raise from that 140 to 175 if you never say sorry. Cool, are we having fun? Last. Okay, so listen, thank you so much.